Now, they say wearing a Rolex is the ultimate luxury status symbol. Ownership of this is a flex of one's success. But what if you could buy one on a shoestring? I've scoured eBay and Chrono24 to source the cheapest Rolexes for men that you can buy under £5,000 right now. And as a dealer in the industry for the last 8 years, I can say I have worn and experienced each and every one of these watches. So do these bargain models still turn heads or just scream wannabe? Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Vinny, a qualified accountant turned watch dealer. 72% of you haven't subscribed as yet, so if you could do that down below, I would really appreciate it. Now, let's kick this off then with perhaps the cheapest and best value Rolex that money can buy for men. It is a 1963 Rolex Oyster Precision, specifically in this case the reference 6426, and it comes in at a smidgen under £1,500. Yes, it seems almost too good to be true. So let's go through this particular model then that is available right now on eBay, a vintage 1963 reference with a case size of 34mm. The first few watches that we're going to talk about are vintage. They are around the 1960s era, and back then it was the norm for gents to wear 34mm case size watches. Now really nowadays in the modern context, the cutoff for gents is 36mm. In fact, if I ever get clients coming to me who are looking for watches for their missus, you know, they may explore 28mm watches, 30mm watches, but I will always try and persuade them to buy the 36mm Datejust in most cases, because for a raft of reasons. One, you can wear it as well, mate. And two, on the grey market, it is a much more liquid asset. It will hold its value much better than a genuine women's piece. 36mm is still a sweet spot and very much a unisex case size in today's world. So why am I even including a 34mm watch? This watch was designed for men and I think still can be worn and enjoyed by men. Bear in mind that it is a watch for an occasion. It's a watch which serves a purpose and absolutely isn't really a watch in the modern context that can be worn on a daily basis. This particular piece, the Oyster, it doesn't feature a date. It's a hand-wound movement as well. If, say, for example, you want a classy gentleman's piece for a wedding or to wear for a special occasion. And you can, of course, still flex to your friends that this on my wrist is a Rolex. Haven't I done well for myself? Next up is a Rolex Oyster Date Precision. Now this is exactly the same as the last watch we've just talked about. It isn't an automatic movement. You have to wind it up every morning, but it features a date window. When many people think of Rolex, they think of that fluted bezel, the Jubilee bracelet, and also the Cyclops magnification for the date. You won't get that with the standard Oyster that is a dateless timepiece. On this watch being a 1960s piece, it is not a quick set date. So adjusting the date means that you have to track your way all the way through each hour and every minute to advance it to the next date. So it's a bit of a nightmare to set this. As I advised before, this isn't really a watch that you will wear on a daily basis, but hey, for £500 more, it's got that extra complication there. Moving up the price ladder, for £2,400, you can buy a Rolex Oyster Perpetual. So this, as we've mentioned before, is a movement which is powered from the kinetic energy provided by the movement of your wrists. So you don't have to wind that up every morning. If you are going to wear it on a daily basis, picking it up, taking it off at night, picking it up the following morning, it should still keep its power and still be running, meaning that you don't have to set the time. Now, this particular example, a 1963 Rolex Oyster Perpetual, comes with the moniker of Air King on the dial. The Air King, of course, is still a production piece in the current collection in 2025. This, guys, was one of the very first Air Kings. Yes, it's not too different to any of the other dressier pieces that we've mentioned before, the Oyster or the Oyster Date. In terms of design and styling, it's almost identical, but that Air King script on the dial is certainly something which adds value and just adds to its collectability. The wrist experience of this, again, it's a 34mm watch, it's small. And look, one thing that really must be stressed about this particular watch and all of the others that I'm talking about in this video, under the £5,000 price point, is they're really not vulnerable to market push and pull factors, which means that where market volatility has been wild in the last couple of years, you know, we've seen Rolexes gain 30% at one point and lose that 30% overnight. That sort of volatility is not something which these particular pieces have been exposed to, and therefore investing or putting your money into one of these pieces really isn't at risk that much at all. Look, these were watches which, when they were brand new, cost literally just a couple of £100. Next up, for around the same price as that Air King, you can pick up a Rolex Oyster Perpetual Date, specifically the reference 1501. This is a fantastic piece because it combines the convenience of a perpetual movement and complication of a date window. So you really got everything that you need in a Rolex, very much similar to what you would get and expect in the very popular and famous Rolex Datejust. This particular watch really is the first one that we've spoken about, which comes with all of those modern features that you would come to expect of a Rolex. So what can spending just £500 more afford you? Perhaps the best watch yet. This is a Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust. Yes, that is the icon, the most recognized Rolex timepiece you can pick up for under £3,000. This particular Rolex Datejust, a 36mm watch, can be found on eBay at the moment for £2,964, and it features the iconic Jubilee bracelet and, in this case, a engine-turned bezel. Now, of course, if you know Rolex, you will be aware and familiar with the fluted bezel, which is a white gold, or if it's a two-tone model, a rose or yellow gold bezel. But in this case, back in the 1970s and 80s, Rolex also produced what was called the engine turn style bezel. So it's very similar in terms of design as the fluted bezel. It's not flat and boring, and it now has been discontinued. Of all of these Rolexes that we're talking about under £5,000, this is the hottest of them all. Because of all of those factors I mentioned there, it is the most highly demanded Rolex at this cheap entry-level price point. Is absolutely never going to lose you a pound of your hard-earned money. I would say and argue that perhaps this is the first Rolex we've talked about which can be worn and enjoyed on a daily basis. Sticking with the Datejust, for just £120 more, we can find a Rolex Datejust in two-tone gold and steel configuration. I cannot think of really a better value proposition at around this price. It features the beautiful champagne gold dial, which matches the fluted bezel that we're getting in this case as well. So it is an engine turn. It's the classic, it's the iconic fluted bezel, paired with a two-tone yellow gold and steel Jubilee bracelet. Of course, this is a question of taste as to whether you prefer this, the two-tone variant, or the steel version. Intrinsically, in terms of gold value, the two-tone one is worth considerably more, certainly with how gold is rallying at the moment at record levels on the commodity markets. One thing that I need to advise, though, with this Jubilee gold bracelet is that most of them of this particular era are very prone to stretching. So if you hold the watch on its side like that, the drooping of the bracelet is quite catastrophic on most of them, and that's because the 18 karat yellow gold is a soft material, and over the last sort of 50 years it's worn away and caused a lot more stretch and flex on the bracelet. So in most cases you may need to pay an extra few £100 more, sending it off to a trusted watchmaker to have it repinned to get a tighter bracelet as it was when it was originally issued, and therefore more wearable on a daily basis. Next up is a watch that I personally fell in love with when I took stock of the first one we ever had just a few months ago, the Rolex Oysterquartz. Now this particular piece is very much back in vogue at the moment because the Oysterquartz is a watch which the brand new Rolex Landdweller is modeled on. So the hottest watch of 2025 is the Landdweller with that Gerald Genta-esque style integrated bracelet. The square 1980s aesthetic is absolutely in fashion across the entire watch industry at the moment, and if you have a look on eBay you can find a champagne dial for just £3,600. Now of course it's the Oysterquartz, so we have to mention that this is not an automatic mechanical movement. In fact, it isn't mechanical at all, it's quartz, so every couple of years you will need to take it to a watchmaker and have a battery fitted. Now, for most of us enthusiasts, there is a snobbery around quartz. It's seen that to be a Rolex, it needs to have that beautiful beating heart of a mechanical movement. Well, I was one of those guys, and I wore this watch, I enjoyed this watch on a daily basis, and I must say, I am no longer in that camp. Quartz is fantastic for a lot of reasons. Mainly for me, with my busy lifestyle, I didn't have to reset the day every morning, wind it up, which is an absolute faff. And, you know, in many cases, you just can't be bothered with. If you've got a quartz watch and an automatic watch next to each other on your watch stand, if you're in a rush in the morning, you're just going to grab the quartz watch. So it's still a Rolex. It's still Rolex's own in-house designed quartz movement. It's one of only 2 quartz movements that they produced in their entire history. So for that reason, it's very collectible as well. Now, it does measure 36mm across the case, but because of that wider integrated bracelet at the lug ends, the whole thing sits on the wrist much larger. I would say more akin to a 38 or 39mm watch, which of course is bang on by modern standards of gents case sizes. So if you want a cheap Rolex but 36mm isn't quite for you, you know, you're going to have to be pushing £6,000-7,000 looking at a Rolex Air King. This, however, is really the only one which wears larger than a 36mm, but you can find under £5,000. And finally, coming in at £4,450, this is the Icon, the Rolex Explorer, and specifically the reference 14270. If it is a Rolex sports watch exclusively that you are looking for, most of these watches I've discussed just simply won't do. They are dressier pieces, two-tone in many cases, smaller case sizes. This is a 36mm watch, but with that iconic history that comes with the Explorer and the Oyster bracelet that it's fitted to. It's very sporty in terms of its aesthetic. Anyway, guys, I hope that's perhaps helped you. Maybe you've been on the lookout for a Rolex for a while, but have long believed it's just something which is too far out of reach. You see retail prices increasing every year, and it's frankly impossible to go and buy them at the authorized dealer anyway, and then they've turned to a secondary market that in most cases those watches are trading at multiples above the retail. It paints a picture that's quite bleak of Rolexes are not for you and are totally unaffordable. While I hope that video has proved otherwise. Anyway, thanks very much for joining me. Go check out vinnyfrancis.com and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.